Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3780. Today's date is December 25, 2025. It's been almost like afternoon at 14:57 p.m. Why am I recording Artifact at 14:57? Well, I'm actually recording Artifact because of that. I just had a lunch, a very heavy lunch, and I don't want to sit in front of kind of like a desk. Just like I just had a kind of like so much heavy lunch, and probably I should supposed to be walk. Okay, yeah. So like if I'm kind of like a walking, then what could better way to kind of like a record the artifact while walking? It was like really good. So yeah, whatever. So let's just jump into the question. Okay, let's go. All right. The question is, what if you could talk to the historian figure? Okay, that's a really good question. If I could talk to the historian figure, first of all, who do I want to talk to? Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like force you to think about that reality. When I try to think about that reality or when I try to create that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge and information and experience that I've been through. And somehow it felt good. The disclaimer, the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's a raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I am saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I am saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. Now, regarding about the question says that, okay, what if you could talk to the historian figure? Like first of all, who do I want to talk to? Who do I want any kind like who do you want to kind of like talk to any kind of like a historian figure? Okay, first of all, let me understand the scenario. The question kind of like explain that key like a basically if you could talk to the historian figure. So what exactly? How do I supposed to talk to the any kind of like somebody historian figure? So I'm just assuming that I might have kind of like some power that I could talk to their soul. Okay, yeah. Like probably is this thing now. If I want to talk to the Leonardo, then I am not going back in history time and things like that. I am kind of like staying in the present moment. But there is a kind of like a Leonardo soul came in front of me and kind of like we are having talking. Okay, we are kind of like doing a lunch and probably we are kind of like started talking regarding about stuff and stuff. So this kind of like a scenario might gonna happen. Okay, so who do you want to talk? Like first of all, there is a one thing that I wanted to that one person that I wanted to talk is a Leonardo. Leonardo is one of the like a Leonardo da Vinci. It was kind of like a really amazing human. I never been kind of like a feel that way. Like I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. If I wanted to talk to this particular person, obviously there is a kind of like a language barrier. Okay, yeah, I cannot able to speak Italian and the Leonardo won't be able to speak English or any kind of like Indian language. Not probably. Okay, but somehow I might gonna learn kind of like some Italian language or things like that, or might be kind of like I have Google Translator. Okay, yeah, so that is Leonardo might gonna speak Italian language. Well, he is actually from Florence, nah. So Florence is actually from Italy, so probably he speak Italian language, or maybe I don't know, like 400 years ago, does they have Italian language? Wait, let me Google it, na. I have a Google, so yeah, let me Google it. Okay, so what language does speak Leonardo da Vinci? What language does speak Leonardo da Vinci? Is Italian, yeah. Tuscan uh, dialect. Tuscan dialect. Italian Tuscan dialect. Tuscan dialect is might be a kind of like a different form of that particular Italian language, but Italian language. Okay, yeah. I am not able to speak Italian language, so I might have kind of Google Translator. It kind of like a really good. Okay, yeah, whatever. So if I wanted to talk to the Leonardo, what would I supposed to be talk? First of all, is that na ki is this thing I am gonna ask like one of the biggest question. Why? Like I already knew what does Leonardo did in his life. Okay, and it is really essential to understand why. Because why am I why is that? Because let me tell you one thing now. It is really essential to understand the purpose. Okay, like why am I recording Artifact? I am recording Artifact is because of it kind of like add value in my life. It kind of like add knowledge and things, and that's some kind of like a recording Artifact, and it kind of like a felt really good to me. Okay, yeah. So everything that we could do, or we are trying to do, or we are wanted to do, have a kind of like a some sort of reason. Okay, yeah. That reason is very much essential. Like basically, if you are doing a job, then why are you doing a job? Like basically, in the end of the day, in the end of the month, I'm getting the salary, and because of the salary, I'm surviving. I'm kind of like a paying the rent or EMI or things or that and that and that. All right. So basically, every action that we are doing is meant for some sort of reason. Okay. Now Leonardo did something very crazy stuff. Dissection. Okay, yeah. Like he could kind of like rip off the entire body and kind of like a look at what kind of like is me inside the body and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now at that time, this is kind of like a considered as a kind of like a illegal. It is also illegal too today. Okay, yeah. But at that time, it's kind of like a not only is illegal, but as kind of like some death settlement or death penalty would be kind of like a somebody happened. Like a it considered as a kind of like a very wrong thing. In today's world, it is also a wrong thing, but if you are kind of like a doing it from science point of perspective, then you are allowed to do this thing. Okay, yeah, like kind of like a take a dead body and kind of like a cut it half and kind of like a see and things and that and that. Okay, yeah, at that time it was very illegal, very wrong in every possible way. Now, why does Leonardo does that? Now, the history tells us that Leonardo is bitterly curious regarding about want to know how the body works and things like that. But I am not believing that. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Yes, curiosity is kind of like a let us do something much more bigger, or let us kind of like us do something much more different. Okay, yeah. Like basically, let me tell you one thing. I am bitterly curious to fly, or I am bitterly curious to kind of like a something that ki something like that ki I just want to curious that ki like I'm curious regarding about getting a knowledge or things like that. I'm bitterly curious regarding about I want to go to another planet or things like that. Oh, I like there is I'm kind of like curious regarding about kind of like a going to the near black hole or things like that. No, I am very much curious. Am I able to do that thing? No, I can't go to the black hole. No, I am curious to regarding about things is that ki basically is this thing na ki what I'm trying to tell you is this thing hungry for knowledge. Okay, yeah. Right now we are living in this particular world where knowledge are everywhere. Like basically on tap of the finger, I search on Google and kind of like I understand that ki Leonardo speak Italian language. Okay, yeah. Like information are everywhere, and I am actually kind of like a privilege that I kind of like a born in 21st century, so that I would have kind of like an entire information regarding about things and that and that. Now in 16th century, it's kind of like a bit more complicated. The information at that time was kind of like a very rarely available, and kind of like a considered privilege to have that particular information. Okay, yeah. And somewhat something, yeah, that key I am curious to going to the black hole. I'm kind of like curious to kind of like a fly and things like that. Even if I'm can't able to do, but I am trying to do. I can able to try. Like it's not that key. I would be not gonna. I would gonna fail. I'm kind of like a somewhat became successful. Like we might have like I can able to fly. Like basically, if I kind of like a simply do like a bungee jumping or any kind of like a paragliding or things like that, which also kind of like a replicate the same experience as a flying and things like that. Not entirely, but somewhat something, let's just say 40-50%. Okay, yeah. but I might get kind of like a 50% kind of like a somebody I did it. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you, yes, curiosity is a kind of like a somewhat something lets you do something very crazy. Okay, yeah, which is good, yeah. But let me tell you one thing. My curiosity is a kind of like a simply flying, or my curiosity is kind of like a going to the black hole, if it possible or not. But yeah, but killing people, dissection and things, it is not only wrong at that time, it is also wrong in today's world too. Okay, now if you don't really understand the what exactly it means, okay, yeah, take a knife, okay, yeah, and what you have to do is that try to kind of like a take the knife and try to kind of like a simply rip off the skin by yourself. Can you able to do this thing? Or like a take the knife and can you able to kind of like a somebody hurt somebody by knife? Can you do that thing? Obviously we can't. Even if there is a like a basically if someone kind of like a trying does that, you could do this thing, you could kind of like a hurt me with this knife, or you could rip off my skin, something like that. Like I might not gonna die, but I might gonna little bit hurtful, but you could able to do this thing. Still I am not able to do that thing. If there is a dead body in front of me, can I able to do this thing? I will hesitate. I will not gonna do this thing. Okay, yeah. Or probably most of the people will not gonna do this thing because it considered as a wrong. Because let me tell you one thing now. We are human. Okay, we are human, and we are not one to kill another human. Literally, like it's not a kind of like a somebody our a human tendency not at able to kill other human. If there is a something that kind of like a we are just a in the warfare, or we are kind of like a military person that our job is meant to kill another human, then in that point of perspective, it's yeah, you can able to kind of like kill another human, but without any reason would you kill another human? We are not. And this is kind of like a somewhat something true in today. It's somewhat something true in 400 years ago too. Okay, yeah. So that's why I am kind of like a bit more curious that why does Leonardo do this dissection? Because it's not just a curiosity. Like if it is curiosity, let's just say that ki I am bitterly curious regarding about how the kind of like a entire body anatomy works and things and that and that. So in that point of perspective, but it's not exactly or completely responsible for doing the dissection. It's something that a kind of like a somebody that keep a reason, and that reason I want to know that history book is not telling us. This is the question that I am gonna ask to the Leonardo, that why you did this thing. Because it's not only wrong from societal point of perspective, but it's also wrong from as a personal point of perspective. As a human might not do this dissection. Let me tell you one thing. Because of he did the dissection, we kind of like understand the human anatomy and things and that, which kind of like lead us to very bright future. We kind of like know, we kind of like consider as a Leonardo is a kind of like a father of the anatomy, human anatomy and things and that and that. But still is this thing that ki it felt wrong. It felt wrong, na? Like basically you have a knife, you kind of like rip off the skin, peel by peel. It really required something like reason to do something very crazy thing. I need to know that reason, and obviously that reason I will gonna know only from the Leonardo. If that particular person came in front of me, I'm gonna ask this question, because it's something called very, I don't know how to, or maybe I'm kind of like completely wrong, because I think that na ki probably I might not read that many books, or might not kind of like understand the what does Leonardo's and things and thought process, what is it is. Yeah, sometimes kind of like a curiosity let us do something very crazy thing, probably. But yeah, this is the question that I'm gonna ask. Why? There are so many questions, but this is the kind of like one of the biggest question that I'm gonna ask, why you did this thing. Okay, yeah. There is also another question that I wanted to write, that I wanted to say. Okay, yeah. That key Leonardo kind of like invented lot of stuff. Like a Leonardo's notebook is one of the famous notebooks. In this notebooks, Leonardo kind of like write so many stuff regarding about human anatomy, regarding about mechanism, regarding about mechanical engineering and things. And these are all those written almost like a 400 years ago. 400 years ago. That is like, oh my god, at that time, kind of like no one actually think about that point of perspective. Okay, yeah. While Leonardo, like kind of like a writing those books, or kind of like a collecting all those information in kind of like a compiling on these notebooks and things like that, it's very essential knowledge for the humanity. It's a very, very essential knowledge. I am gonna ask this question: why Leonardo kept all those notebooks in secret? Like basically, let me tell you one thing: Leonardo's books are not found by kind of like a Leonardo's kind of like a cabinet or things like that. No, it's actually found after a 100 year after, like basically after 100 year, kind of like a someone random person, kind of like a somebody person who kind of like a found out Leonardo's notebook, and then he realized that ki, oh, Leonardo kind of like did a lot of invention in his time and things and that after 100 year, like after 100 or 200 year, yeah. But till then, Leonardo was no one, like literally no one. Okay, like he just draw the Mona Lisa painting. He just kind of like did lot of crazy stuff. But all the innovations and all the invention that kind of like lead to the humanity, lead to the humanity to a much more better way, much more kind of like a, yeah. But still, is this thing he kept his knowledge secretive. I want to know why. Okay, yeah. It is also understandable that ki, like whatever the innovation that you did, like whatever the kind of like a Leonardo innovate things regarding about the human anatomy and things and that, obviously these are kind of like a wrong at that time. People might gonna found, then probably Leonardo might gonna die because government or the church might gonna kind of like assembly kill him and things like that. But dude, Leonardo is die very peacefully. He die at the age of almost like maybe 60, 70, I don't know, somehow, somewhere. Okay, yeah. So basically, is this thing now, even after you are dying, even after you are kind of like, let's just say that ki, you realize that ki within a year I might gonna die. So why not Leonardo kind of like a somebody share the information or share the knowledge to the people or things like that? Why not Leonardo does that thing? Why does all those information kept secret? It's not really like, if the Leonardo is bitterly curious, I don't know why. Like it's just kind of like a things that now these are kind of like some questions that I ask to myself that I'm not really understanding things. Okay, yeah. Now let me tell you one thing now. Why does people kept secret? Okay, why does people kept secret? Like, let's just say that if I'm kind of like a recording this artifact, it kind of like had so much value to me and things and that. So probably is this thing na ki I also understand that na ki because of this artifact, because of this thing, it kind of like add value to the people. So that's some kind of like a sharing this thing on social media platform or any kind of like a things and that. I was gonna create the app so that people might gonna do and things and that. At least like a one person might gonna start or kind of like a, yeah. Like basically I want to like, basically I'm not kind of like a trying to hidden it. Okay, yeah. I'm kind of like sharing it and things like that. Because I think that it kind of like add value to the people and things like that. But Leonardo kept the secret, or is it kept the secret? I'm not really sure. Maybe I don't really have lack of knowledge or things that, but still this is, yeah. But one thing for sure, this is the question that I will gonna ask. And another thing is that na ki, yes, it's a very privilege to be kind of like somebody being talked to that particular person, because I am bitterly admire of way that he was think, the way that he was kind of like a do the stuff, really required courage to do that thing. Literally just really required to courage to do that thing. Like basically just imagine you are kind of like a standing in front of your table, there is a dead body in front of you. Dude, how much scary that scene was. And you are kind of like a rip off the skin layer by layer. Oh my god. Like it really required not only just a curiosity, but it really required courage to do this thing. And I think I am not that particular person. It is like too much kind of like a things that I don't know how to supposed to explain. Okay, so this kind of like a question that there are so many questions. Obviously, I'm gonna kind of like assembly, kind of like have so much kind of like assembly question that I will gonna ask. But these are kind of like question that I wanted to talk. Okay. Okay, then another person that I wanted to talk. Okay, yeah. Hitler. Yeah. Like let's just say that I am kind of like a sitting and there is a Hitler's soul is actually came in front of me. So what kind of like a question that I will gonna ask to the Hitler soul or Hitler? Yeah. Um, what kind of like a question that you gonna ask? First of all, is that na, like I don't know, yaar. Basically, is this thing na ki uh okay, the every action that Hitler does, okay, yeah, obviously those actions are very wrong, okay, yeah, but every action that Hitler does are somewhat something sense or make sense, okay, yeah, that why he does. Now let me tell you one thing. You are kind of like a consider me that I'm kind of like a bias and things like that. You are kind of like a somebody that you are kind of like a somebody asking very kind of like critical question to the Leonardo, but like a for the Hitler you should supposed to be hate to the Hitler. So you, why does you kind of like a saying this thing that ki the things that Hitler does make sense? Like why does he do that? Like he did something very wrong, na? Okay, yeah, he did something very wrong. And I'm not really like, I'm not kind of like a saying that he's kind of like a really right person. No, he is very fucked up person and he was very wrong person. But what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, it does make sense. It does make sense. Okay, let me clarify. Maybe I'm kind of feel completely wrong, but I'm telling my point of perspective. Also, my perspective might be also wrong too. But artifact are meant to be kind of like express my point of view, so I'm gonna express here. Okay, yeah. So basically, this after the World War One, okay, yeah, there is a kind of like a treaties actually happened. Versailles Treaty. I don't know. It's like this treaty, Versailles Treaty or Warsaw Treaty. I'm not really sure exactly. It's somewhat something associated with that Warsaw, something like that. Okay, so this treaty are kind of like a lead us to the Germany in a very much crippled position. First of all, in this treaty, they kind of like a blame the all the World War One is actually happened because of Germany, which is completely wrong because like it's not like basically Germany is not the kind of like somebody responsible for World War One, but still all the blame goes to the Germany. One thing. Another thing is that because of all the blame goes to Germany, then England, France, and every other nation are kind of like a blame the Germany, and they want to kind of like a somebody something like that key. What is actually is this thing? Uh, Compensation. They want kind of like compensation. So what kind of like compensation they get? Like basically this thing, they take the land, they take the money, they take everything. Okay, and there are so many restrictions that kind of like a Germany had, that they shouldn't, they might not have that much amount of military, or they might not have this kind of like aircraft, they might not have the navies and things. They have kind of like all the restrictions and things, and that their economics is actually collapsed. Like a probably at that time kind of like a somebody $1 equivalent to the kind of like a 1 trillion German currency. I'm not really sure what exactly is this thing, but they have kind of like a been through very worse condition, very worse condition. Okay, yeah. Now in that point of perspective, if you are kind of like a particular person who are kind of like a love the nation, like a basically, if I'm gonna say I am the kind of like a person who love my country name is Germany. Okay, yeah. So I am kind of like a somebody just fuck my mindset. Like I just gonna say, what the fuck is this thing? Like basically is this thing. First of all, there is a so many wrong thing will gonna happen to my country because of that. These England, France, and everyone kind of like a blame me regarding about stuff. Okay, yeah. I am not feel really good. I'm not feel like a really good. Okay, yeah. So what I did is that I just want to be build up my country. I just wanted to build my country as much as better and things like that. Okay, yeah. So I am gonna do this thing. I'm gonna kind of like take the charge. I'm gonna this thing. I'm gonna say that my country will gonna do, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna do all my power to make my country as good as powerful as I could supposed to be do this thing. I'm gonna able to do that thing because it's a kind of like a somebody is this thing that it's a nature's point of perspective or nature's way to do this thing. Because let me tell you one thing now. There is a one phrase. Okay, um a wrong time kind of like a lead to hard men. Like there is a kind of like a phrase that's a very popular phrase. Okay, wait, let me the hard hard time. Okay, hard time creates strong mind. Okay, what is exactly? Okay, yeah, this is the image. Okay, yeah. Hard time create the strong men. Strong men create the good time. Good time create the weak men, and weak men creates the hard time. Now this is a kind of like a phrase that you have to understand, and by nature point of perspective, this is what exactly happened. Okay, yeah. So in the German point of perspective, okay, yeah, what exactly happened in that particular point? Okay, yeah. So basically, it's a hard time over there. Economic collapse. In militaries was nothing really at all. We don't really have power for nothing. So it's a very hard time. So because of hard time, it creates strong men like a Hitler. Okay, it's strong man creates like strong man kind of like assembly establish and Hitler kind of like assembly makes their country as much as better it possible it could supposed to be do and things like that. Okay, now obviously is this thing I'm kind of like considered as a Hitler as a person like a Hitler. Okay, yeah. Now basically by person Hitler is a kind of like a very fucked up person. Way that he do with the Jews and things which is completely wrong, but it is also makes sense too. Why does kind of like assembly Hitler does something very wrong to the Jews? Because of that, first of all, is that key at that time, like a Austria-Hungary Empire and things and that in the German thing, the Jews people are kind of like a people who are controlling the like they have hold the very big power. Okay, they hold the big power and things like that. Okay, and basically is this thing they are kind of like doing something wrong to the Aryan people or things or that. I'm not really sure. Like the information that I have is a very fragile. Probably it's not really kind of considered, but the stuff that I kind of like heard from YouTube videos and things and that. Okay, yeah. At that time, kind of like somebody, the Zeus people have kind of like a lot of powers and things like that, and they are kind of like utilize their power for kind of like crunching the other peoples. Okay, yeah, because at that time casteism was kind of like a very much common. Okay, there is no kind of like assembly human rights and things like that. Like these are not even existence at that time. Okay, yeah. So at that time these are kind of like a very much common. Okay, yeah. Now basically the Hitler is also came from such a particular class of those people who kind of like a seen that ki Jews people are kind of like always kind of like a way to diminishing other class or things or that and that. Now because of Hitler was kind of like comes from army background and things and that he always found out that ki there is only one way to kind of like eradicate the Jews people to by killing and things like that. So he kind of like took this way and probably yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki I am not gonna ask this question to the Hitler that ki why do you kill the Zeus, because it does make sense that why does he kill Zeus, because at that time Zeus was kind of like utilizing power for like a for very wrong purposes and things like that. Okay, and I also makes sense that ki why does Hitler rises, because of that ki Germany was kind of like at the downfall and things and like not just kind of like solely Hitler but anyone kind of like a person who is kind of like a love the country or kind of like a fight for the country in the World War I, he also feels that nahi, like I just have to kind of like build my country or things or that and that. So yeah, he could able to do this thing. So this is what kind of like it felt like that ki it does make sense. Okay, yeah. Like basically if I'm gonna say this thing that ki every action that Hitler does, it makes sense that ki he why he does that thing. Okay, yeah. So I don't really have any kind of like something like that ki question for Hitler that ki why you did this thing or why you did that, because it already makes sense. And okay, let me tell you one thing now. I am kind of like sounding so wrong at the moment because of this thing na ki you are kind of like hearing this thing from today's point of perspective, and that's the wrong thing. Okay, when you try to think about from 1920 or 1900 at that time or 1905, at that time try to understand from that point of perspective. Let me tell you one thing, perspective is very much different thing na. The way that you think about the World War II and the way that the people think about the World War at that time was kind of completely different. At that time World War I and World War II is not even the concept, because at that time there is just a war and things like that. Okay, yeah. Like in today's world, we understand that how the fucked up was World War II. We realize that how many people are dead and things and that and that. In every possible way, World War II was completely considered as a completely wrong thing. Yeah. But at that time when this was actually happened, it's not considered as a kind of like a World War One or two. It's considered as a war. Okay, yeah. And every step that Hitler does, it makes sense that he does. I'm not kind of like a judging that why like he did something. Like I also think that he was wrong. Yeah, the way that he killed the Zeus and things and that, it's completely wrong. Completely wrong. Yeah, but the whatever the action that he does, it makes sense. That why he does that thing. Okay, yeah. There are so many people I wanted to talk if I wanted to talk any kind of like historian figure or things like that. But still, at the moment, I might not have that much information regarding about all those people. Like basically, is this thing I also wanted to Einstein too. Okay, yeah. Regarding like also regarding about lot of questions regarding about how do you got this idea that a space-time fabric would be kind of like considered as a like okay like I'm gonna ask the question to this Einstein. Okay, it was kind of like a bit more sci-fi, so I'm gonna talk about Einstein. Okay, let's just imagine that there is an Einstein soul is actually came in front of me and I am gonna ask the bunch of questions. So what kind of like a question that I should supposed to be asked? Okay, yeah. It is also really understandable that usually is this thing our mind is actually think about very different possibilities, and that's I wanted to understand that why does kind of like a Einstein think about the space time, think about the light speed, think about the general relativity of theory. It was like it was kind of like a mind boggling that it's not even kind of like a this thing that yeah, it really required a kind of like a very very strong brain power to thought process and imagine and things like that. Because let me tell you one thing now. Okay, in today's world we also understand what is actually general relativity theory, like the time runs slows when you kind of like a speed up at the speed of the light, or kind of like it kind of like a happen when you kind of like have too much experience the gravity or things and that. But at that time Einstein kind of like simply determine and stuff and imagine those point of like perspective. How does he think on that point of perspective? I wanted to think like him. I don't know, but Einstein is always kind of like gives me a kind of like little bit goosebump regarding about how does he thinks, how does he think about that point. Yeah, like basically in scientific in history book kind of like they mention that kind of like somebody the Einstein kind of like imagine himself as a light photon particle and kind of like see the world if he was kind of like a light photon particle, and kind of like see the world that what if kind of like a world look like if he was kind of like at the speed of the light. Okay, yeah. So that's why he kind of like somebody determine the kind of like some general relativity theory and kind of like all the gravity equations and things and that, which is kind of like really crazy in its thing. But dude, that thought process really required like I don't know how do I supposed to explain it. It is a lot of things. Okay, if I have to kind of like ask bunch of questions to the Einstein, I'm gonna ask the question that like how do you think? Okay, what kind of like assembly is this thing? That's yeah, it's a very much different. Like yeah. Okay. Then I am gonna ask question to the like a spiritual leader Gautam Buddha. Okay, yeah. Regarding about the peace and things that how do you supposed to establish peace? Okay, yeah. If there is a Gautam Buddha in front of me, okay, yeah. What kind of like question that I should supposed to be asked? Gautam Buddha is actually kind of like established peace by doing meditation. Okay, yeah. I established peace by doing artifact. Okay, yeah. No, I am not comparing myself with the with Gautam Buddha. Gautam Buddha is kind of like a far more bigger personality or things like that. Okay, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing, na, is this thing that I just wanted to re-verify that the way that I establish my peace inside of my mind is a right way or wrong way. Because let me tell you one thing, na, in the Gautam Buddha point of perspective or meditation point of perspective, you should supposed to be calm. You should supposed to be do not think about that point of perspective. Or let me tell you what exactly is this thing. Okay, what is actually Gautam Buddha way and what is actually my way. Okay, imagine that you are a kind of like a somebody holding a dumbbells. Okay, let's just say you are kind of like a somebody holding a kind of like a somebody like you are doing a kind of like a somebody, let's just say that ki dumbbell bar, what is actually is called? Is like there is a kind of like assembly, the people who are kind of like lifting the weight, that what is actually is called? Crunches, probably. Yeah, let's just imagine. Okay, yeah. So you are standing and you are kind of like assembly lifting the weight. Okay, you are lifting the weight. Let's just say 200 kilos of kind of like assembly. The weights are actually kind of like a tangle up in the bar and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now these are the weights are represent the stress in the human life, like what kind of like stress that it actually happened and things and that and that and that and that, and how much weight it kind of like depend upon how much stress it is. Bigger the weight means bigger the stress. Okay, yeah. Now Gautam Buddha point of perspective, Gautam Buddha kind of like mentioned that ki like basically when you have those kind of like some stress, just kind of like let it off, don't think about those stress, and kind of like simply let go of those things, let go, let detach and things and that, and be kind of like a calm and things like that. Okay, yeah. And and be calm. Okay, yeah. And you feel really relaxed, and this is the way that you could kind of like get into the kind of like a found the peace, probably. Okay, yeah. Now let me tell you the scenario as simplified as possible point of perspective. Might be I'm completely wrong, but I'm gonna tell my point of perspective. Okay, yeah. So let's just say that ki you are in that particular person, you are holding the weight. Okay, yeah. The weight is kind of like a stronger. Okay, yeah. It became kind of like a heavier. More heavier means more stress. Okay, yeah. More heavier but more stress. Yeah. This dumbbell is kind of like a way much heavy, but you are still standing. But because of this you are doing it, the other people are kind of like a respect you because of you are kind of like holding that much amount of weight. Yes, you are getting the stress, but also you are getting the respect from the society. Okay, you are also getting the respect from the society. This is what kind of like a somewhat something a societal point of perspective. Okay, yeah. Now Gautam Buddha kind of like assembly represent a kind of like assembly way that you should supposed to be release those weight or release those kind of like assembly weights or dumbbells or things like that. Okay, yeah. And consider yourself as a kind of like assembly enlightened, more kind of like a feel little bit lighter, and this is the way that you could kind of like assembly get peace. Okay, yeah. But when you do this thing, when you let down those weight, when you let go those dumbbells and things like that, then probably you lose the respect, na. Okay, you lose respect. Like basically the respect that you have when you kind of like a lift up the weight. When you are not lifting the weight, people are not kind of like a giving you respect. Okay, and when people are not giving you respect, it kind of like a hurt you. Okay, yeah, it kind of like a somewhat something hurt you, because respect are kind of like a somewhat something matter not only for today, in kind of like in past history, it matter for them too. It's matter. Okay, respect is kind of like one of the really essential thing for the human, and this is what kind of like we've developed because we are social animal. Now, basically, is this thing na ki Gautam Buddha point of perspective says this thing ki do not worry about what does people think. Do not worry about what does anything. Just be detached. Just be calm. You found the peace. And yeah, they found the peace. This is the way that you could kind of like found the peace. But it's a very hard way. Okay, it's a very hard way. Means like that. What I'm trying to tell you is this thing. Hard way means what? Like basically you have to sacrifice so many things. Okay, first of all, you have to sacrifice all your responsibility. Monks doesn't really do marriage or things or that. They don't do, like basically this, they have to sacrifice a lot of things. They are not staying there at home or things or that or that. They sacrifice a lot of things to kind of like get the peace and things like that. Okay, yeah, which is very very hard way, and probably is this thing 10 out of only 1% could able to do this thing, but not everyone. Okay, now what is actually my way? What is actually is this thing? My way is that he kind of like assembly is this thing. It's not a meant to be kind of like assembly is this thing that he kind of like you became kind of like assembly, like basically scenario is the same. You are at the gym, you are kind of like lifting the weight and things like that. Okay, now basically what is actually is this thing that ki you are not the lifting the weight all the time. Okay, let's just say you are lifting the weight, let's just say kind of like assembly maybe 9 to 5. Okay, in 9 to 5 you are kind of like lifting the weight and you are kind of like a feel really kind of like assembly, yeah, but still you have a stress, you have that particular stress and things like that. Now Gautam Buddha says that forget that stress. Forget that stress. But my way is that ki whatever the stress that you have, express those stress. Let it go, that stress. Let it go means what? In Gautam Buddha point of perspective, let it go means like that, forget about the stress. And my point of perspective or my way is that ki express those stress, because I think I realize in my life, okay, yeah, that ki whatever the stress that you have or whatever the kind of stuff that you have inside of your mind, it is really essential to express those things in front of whoever the person in front of you, your girlfriend, wife, or things like that. You just kind of express those things, whatever what is actually inside of you. When you kind of express, you feel a little bit of lighter, you feel a little bit of enlightenment and things like that. Okay, yeah, I changed this methodology into something very different as an artifact. In the artifact, you could kind of express your thoughts and things in the recording device. Okay, yeah, so that you will not have that judgmental looks and things and that, and you are kind of be free to kind of express yourself in utmost very much probably. Okay, yeah. Now, if you are kind of if you are kind of expressing yourself, okay, yeah, but also when you are kind of do this thing, you are also getting so much amount of value too, because when you try to talk with yourself, or when you try to express, or when you try to ask bunch of questions, you are kind of getting so much value too. Basically, I'm asking this question to myself. Because of I'm asking this question to myself, I'm kind of getting value too. So it not only give me freedom to express myself, but also kind of gives me opportunity to grow myself while doing the same process. Okay, while doing the same thing. Okay, yeah, so that's why, and because, and in this particular process, I don't have to sacrifice anything. Okay, I am not kind of simply going to a mountain, became a monk and things like that. No, I am kind of staying at home, kind of trying to chase the dreams that I want to be and things and that. And these are all those things actually happen is because of the artifact way and things like that. Now, the question that I wanted to ask to the Gautam Buddha is that, is it right process or wrong process? Now, I think that Gautam Buddha is not also a person who would kind of give the answer. Why? Because Gautam Buddha is not kind of recorded the artifact, or didn't really kind of express his thought process and things like that. Or he might be, I'm not really sure about that. Okay, yeah. So what exactly is this thing? What kind of assembly is this thing? What kind of a way is much more better? Basically doing meditation or doing recording artifact? I think that it's not only, it's not kind of a depend upon which one is right and which one is wrong. It's depend upon that how do you supposed to feel. If you feel good while doing it, that it's okay to do this thing. Okay, yeah. Basically, peace is not meant to be kind of somebody stagnant, that that key for the every person, the peace is kind of somebody only this way to kind of achieve this thing. No, I did not think that way. I think that every person's peace is very much subjective. It's a relative. It's a relative. It change. It's a very subjective. It's kind of depends upon the person to person. What kind of a person feel really good, feel really great regarding about what he kind of did in his life and things like that. So I think that probably is this thing that none of the kind of some methodology would kind of making them people peaceful. Basically some people are kind of bitterly peaceful when they are kind of somebody, let's just say, drinking alcohol, which is also really wrong thing. But yeah, from his point of perspective, he is getting peace from the drinking alcohol, so probably it is okay to for him. By societal point of perspective, that is also wrong. But yeah, okay, yeah, some people are kind of doing the work for getting the peace, right? Yeah, which is also kind of a really good thing. Yeah, so I think that okay, what is actually peace? A peace means that a purposeful, a kind of a things that you realize yourself that why are you born on this planet, and peace is established that. Peace is kind of letting you that yes, the things that I'm doing is kind of doing right thing. That kind of inside feeling is kind of considered as, I think, peaceful probably, or purposeful. I'm not really sure, by the way. Oh my god, it's been 44 minutes. I am actually straight up talking. Whatever. This is just my opinion regarding about what if there is a kind of a people who kind of I wanted to talk. And yeah, this. And by the way, is this thing that if my stuff that I mention or things, I am not comparing myself to someone else. Obviously not. Okay, yeah. I completely, totally respected all those people, even if the Hitler and everything. Yes, I do hate Hitler, the things that he did, but it does make sense. Okay, yeah. I am not disrespecting any kind of some people that I mentioned the name. Nothing really at all. I'm just literally curious and I just wanted to know the answer. I wanted to verify, or maybe I'm kind of like completely fucked up or wrong person. I'm not really sure about that. But artifact are kind of like letting me express my thoughts and things like that. So that's saying. Whatever. This is it. This is the end. And sorry and thank you.